Committee of the Sonoma County Library. We have presenters today, so I'm going to change the order of the agenda so they can go first. Not have to sit by through our other fascinating topics. I am going to call the roll, but I'd like to acknowledge the fact that Commissioner Cahill is joining us off-site under just cause provision. And I need to ask you, David, if you have anyone over 18 in the room with you.
Nope.
All right. Thank you and welcome. I hope you feel better.
Well, hope so too.
So I'll call the rest of the roll. Commissioner Doyle.
Here.
Commissioner Elkind.
Here.
And Commissioner Poles. Don't see yet. Have we heard from her? No. All right. And I am here, Commissioner McKenzie. So moving on to announcements, we want to announce the time and date of our budget workshop, which is for the proposed FY 2025-2026 budget. It's going to take place on April the 16th at 1 o'clock here in library headquarters. I've been advised that we do not have anyone from the public.
No, there are no public comments received via email, and there are no members of the public on Zoom.
Right, thank you, Lisa. So again, we'll change the order of the agenda and hear from our presentation on the Section 125 Trust Solutions, but CFO Lopez, would you like to make any introductory comments before we welcome them?
Yes. The Finance Committee has ensured that there is ongoing discussions, and Chair McKenzie has requested that at every meeting we have a topic on the umbrella question of creating some procedure or a policy for the use of the unassigned fund balance. And one priority for this committee has been the unfunded accrued liability for our pension. And this committee has had presentation by CalPERS that where we have established a 115 trust for our OPEB liabilities. And having already heard from CalPERS, this committee is also interested in hearing from other agencies or organizations that provide services in this space. And I did some research and found that Keenan Solutions provides services for many public agencies in California and some here in the Bay Area. And I spoke with them, and they gave a very good presentation, and I thought it was beneficial for this to make a recommendation to this committee to also hear directly from them and to continue this discussion on how to potentially, what are the options in managing our UAL. So with that, I wanted to introduce Ms. Rosalind. Where is she?
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Rosalind Washington, and Melissa King, who will be presenting today on behalf of Keenan.
So thank you guys so much.
I'll start us off today with our presentation. My name is Melissa King. I'm one of the lead consultants for Keenan Financial Services. I am joined by our in-house trust guru, Rosalind Washington, Assistant Vice President, and we're here to give you an overview of our solution for pension funding. And next slide. And to start off, we just wanted to kind of show and share our client base for 115 Trusts. We've been offering 115 Trusts for 20 years now. These are a couple of our public agencies. We have a lot of school district clients as well in college districts. And we also work with a number of public agencies in California. So these are those clients. Some clients have the trust set up for pension, some have them for OPEB, some have them for both. We know right now you have that OPEB trust with CalPERS. So just taking a look at sort of what else lies out there from an optionality perspective for investing these dollars. Next slide. We do have the largest 115 trust in California outside of CalPERS. So that's close to 1.5 billion in assets. And what's nice is we have a lot of options that we'll kind of jump into as it comes to investing. When you look at CalPERS 115 Trust for Pension, they only offer 2 investment portfolio options. So a lot more here to show for. Next slide. And the basics of our 115 Trust solution. We utilize a multiple employer trust just for public agencies in California. It's set up as a multiple employer trust and retirement system. Really help mitigate those long-term pension volatility. We know that CalPERS is currently looking at their investments and will be making changes to their discount rate in 2026. So some changes on the horizon as it comes to your pension trusts. And really what we want to show you is that we have the ability to give you sort of a little bit more local control with your funds, with our investment flexibility and liquidity. You have the benefits of a discretionary advisor to assume the trust's financial liability instead of just a general investment advisor. We have 6 portfolios, so 3 times more than what's offered with CalPERS. And we have our own proprietary risk assessment tool to help you sort of figure out, based upon what your goals are, what the best investment strategy would be for the district. We also sort of handle all of the administration and meetings in compliance with the Brown Act. We have an annual meeting of authority each year. This past year, we offered to do 2 meetings. The group said no, so we're sticking with 1. But we like to really focus on education. So outside of those meetings, we have monthly newsletters. We have quarterly meetings with our investment advisor or investment fund managers. So you get to sort of meet with those managers, learn even more about what's happening in the marketplace and what their strategy is for those funds. So we really want to make it easy for groups and accessible to help them set up these programs. So that's really our goal with our offering. Really easy solution here, right? So you're investing funds in this trust, whether that's one-time reserves or one-time funding. We know some groups like to take advantage of the annual funding with their trusts with CalPERS to, I think for the library, it's about $50,000 you save each year by funding on an annual basis instead of a monthly basis. So putting that extra dollars in savings within the pension trust, and really the dollars invested in the trust really allow you to select that risk tolerance, have someone else manage those dollars on your behalf, and then flexibility with withdrawal timing, whether you want to reimburse prior contributions or future contributions, withdrawing and investing those and transferring those to PERS without any fees.
Add something really quick, go back to that slide, Melissa. I just want to touch base on the risk tolerance that we use. It's kind of a bad psych test that our investment advisors will present to the group. I don't know if it's going to be the finance committee or whoever that you decide to be on the oversight board. But as I said, it's like a really bad psych test where he goes through several questions and asks you, you know, are you more willing to accept a loss at this percentage in order to have a gain at this percentage? So what that does is allow them to scrabble the numbers at the end of the test, and then it gives them a picture of which portfolio that best suits you all. Because I'm sure you all have your own individual portfolio funds, but this right here is public entity money, so you have to kind of think differently as well as how you invest your monies here. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. It's a really good tool that we use.
Thank you, Rosalind. So our Section 115 Trust team is built up of 3 members here. We have Keenan, we're your program administrator. Benefit Trust Company is going to be the custodian and discretionary advisee. And then outside of that, we have Morgan Stanley, which is the investment advisor to Benefit Trust Company. And Rosalind's going to do a deep dive on that program in the next slides here. Thanks, Rosalind.
Thank you so much. So as Melissa indicated, it's a 3-member team. We've been together since the inception of our program. We started our program with just having a Section 115 trust for OPEB. And then one of our larger community college districts about maybe 8 years ago asked us, hey, can we do something similar to this on the pension side? Because the cost of the fees for CalPERS were steadily rising. And so we said, yeah, so we set up an identical portfolio or trust account for the pension clients as we have for the OPEB clients. So what we do at Keenan, we handle everything administratively. We are tasked for ensuring that you are in compliance with Brown Act, that you're in compliance with GASB 68. 74, 75 if you're on the OPEB side. So it's our job to make sure that our clients are very well educated. As Melissa said, we send out a monthly newsletter that comes directly from Morgan Stanley's Chief Investment Officer. We send out notification letting you know when your statements are ready. If there's any hiccups in the market, like we currently saw in the last couple of weeks here, we also will provide information directly to our clients, and that information comes in the form of an email letting you know, because we know sometimes you can get a little worried when there's things that are going on that's disrupting the market like we had in 2022. The role of Benefit Trust Company, they're the discretionary trustee. And I'll just explain briefly a difference between a discretionary trustee versus a directive trustee. So they have the complete fiduciary obligation to be an oversight and select the funds that are going into the particular portfolios. We use mutual funds. So it's not as if you're going to come to us and say, hey, I'd like to have my portfolio designed specifically following the S&P 500, or I'd like to have all Tesla stocks over here, because if you do that, then you become a directive trustee, and that means the fiduciary obligation that you have as an oversight committee is going to be a lot greater than it is that you already have just being on the finance committee. So that's a really good resource that we have using a discretionary trustee. And as Melissa said, the investment consultant to BTC, because the district, if you decide to go with our program, you're going to be contracted with Keenan as the administrative or the program coordinator, and then you're going to also be contracted with Benefit Trust as the discretionary trustee, but the contract with Morgan Stanley is only with Benefit Trust. And the purpose of us having that layered approach is if Benefit Trust decides, there's so many different investment vehicles out there. So if Benefit Trust decides that Morgan Stanley is no longer doing the job that they would like to do, they can replace that entity as the investment consultant to BTC. But we've been together, my team and I have been together. There's no turnover for the entire inception of our program. So over 20 years, we've all been together. Next slide, please. So again, this is the team. So the Pension Trust Program Administrator, which is Keenan, we prepare all agendas, the meeting minutes. We act basically as a extension to the district as far as your staffing is concerned. I work a lot of times directly with your actuary. with your auditors. If they need to receive any documentation to assist with the audit report, you can always provide my name just as an extension of your administrative staff there at the district. We provide a complete and detailed day-to-day client service. So we are available by phone, by email at any given time. And my team is really good at responding. So if you don't get a response within 24 hours, then there's something probably wrong there. So we provide a full range of insurance and financial services products, creating custom-tailored programs for public entities for over 50 years. As Melissa had indicated in our first communication with Myrna, she also works on the employee benefits side. So if there are any additional information that you can need, the district can need to help with lowering your liability on the pension side, or even on the OPEB side, even though you're already in an OPEB trust with CalPERS, she works with HRAs and other resourceful tools that she can give you information on. So our program team consists of, for Keenan, consists of Gail Beal. She's our senior vice president. She's been with Keenan almost 35 years. She is the program lead since day one of this program. I've been with Keenan 20 years. I'm the direct, basically the day-to-day contact person. If you can't remember a name, you know, it's usually good to just go through me and I can get you any answers that you need. And then we have Melissa. She came on board a few years back, and she does a wonderful job working directly with municipality clients. So that's why our team makes a really good program together. Next slide, please. As I indicated, Benefit Trust Company, they're the discretionary trustee. They are located in Overland Park, Kansas. They have been our discretionary trustee on this program going back 20 years ago when we only had 1 or 2 clients and we only had $90 million in trusts. And this business has grown together with them. They used to work, before they got into the realm of Section 115 trust, they used to work primarily on ESOP programs. So they are very well versed with what's going on with California regulation, with ERISA laws, with all Section 115 and retirement system rules. So they're very well versed on that. They act as the discretionary trustee, which mitigates a lot of the liability that you all will have as far as the earnings that are gained on the funds and the fund selection themselves. So we have Scott Rankin. He's a senior vice president. He's been with he's been with BTC for 30 years. He's the program lead from day one, just like the rest of us. He has a client service team called Core Processing Unit, and in charge of that team is Carrie George. She's a client service representative. So if you ever need information like how to access the trust online, because you will be granted access online, so you can view your account just like your own personal investment account on a day-to-day basis. Again, they're located in Overland Park, Kansas, but they participate in all of our annual meetings that we have. Our meetings are conducted via Zoom on an annual basis. Next slide. So this is our program structure here. Keenan Financial Services, we have a service agreement already signed with the initial person that, because it's a multiple employer trust, so it's different than a single employer trust. If it's a single employer trust, then each individual client signs their own contracts and agreements with Keenan and with Benefit Trust Company. But since this isn't a multiple employer trust, there's fewer services that, detailed services that we provide as opposed to a single employer trust. And that's allowed us to keep the fees at a very minimum of 30 basis points. So you will be contracted with the program by way of a participation agreement, and I'll get more into that on another slide. But it's the governing board here, or the finance committee, or which I'm assuming is the governing board of a Sonoma County Library. But then you're going to select a particular person or 2 people, one main member and 1 alternate. And it's not a requirement, but it is a recommendation to have 1 person selected to be on what we call our Retirement Board of Authority, which is an oversight board. So right now we currently have, I think we have maybe 12 or 15 clients on the Muni PST, but we have 7 members on our oversight board from various entities. And then the contract you have with Benefit Trust, that trust agreement has already been signed with the founding member of the Multiple Employer Trust, which at that time was South Orange County Community College District, one of our larger SoCal community college districts. And they are the first one who actually asked, can we design a pension program similar to the program that they had for their OPEB liability that they've been with us for over 20 years. Next slide, please. Our program has no conflict of interest. Our roles are very distinct and very separate. It creates and builds an oversight for each party. So each member of this 3-member team knows exactly what their roles are. My role is to complete everything administratively, can make sure everybody is on track as far as the calendar is concerned, as far as compliance is concerned. If there's anything that comes down, we have a full legal team here at Keenan that lets us know on a regular basis if there are any changes when it comes to California government code. Benefit Trust is an investment committee, so they have their own specific investment committee that meets on a quarterly basis with the Morgan Stanley Investment Committee team. And they're the ones to decide, and they choose amongst over 14,000 funds to go into that make up the mutual funds. They do not include any Morgan Stanley funds, and there's no Keenan or BTC funds that are included in your program. So there's no pay-to-play program fees, no 12B1 marketing fees or sub-transfer fees, no shareholder service fees. There's no outside fees that are not in compliance. Next slide. Again, this is our Board of Authority. I kind of discussed it already, but it's not a requirement, but we do recommend to have one person participating on this board. It provides local control. So that person can meet with the finance committee and get instruction from them, establish a resolution. We have various template documents that we can provide to you. And it requires Brown Act meetings, which creates a total transparency of our program. And the meeting, it can be a public meeting as well because it is Zoom. So if you'd like to include the public meeting, we send out a Zoom link and we go through the calendar to make sure everybody is accessible before we put it on calendar. Next slide. Keep going. So our enrollment process is very simple. There is a 1-page participation agreement. As I indicated, the trustee document has already signed, and that outlines what BTC can and cannot do when it comes to investment selection. And then there's a service agreement that Keenan has already completed with the founding member. It outlines what we do on our behalf. There's no minimum deposit required. I know that was a question. An account can be opened within 48 hours of receipt. We do recommend that when you sign the participation agreement, it is like within a 30-day time frame of you deciding when you'd like to fund, because Benefit Trust really does not like to open an account, just like any banking establishment does not like to open an account and have it sitting there for more than 30 days with a zero balance. The Board of Authority member agreement is another document. If you decide to have a person on the Retirement Board of Authority, that's optional, but that's one agreement that you'll sign. And then there's signature authorization forms and there's internet access forms. And the signature authorization form provides direction for Benefit Trust. So it allows, we'll send a form to you via DocuSign. You're going to let us know who are the minimum of 2 authorized signers. So when you get to the point where you'd like to make a withdrawal from the trust, we recommend to have at least 2 authorized signers. And so you're going to provide us with those names, those email addresses, and then we'll forward that information over to BTC. So when they do receive the form, they cross-check it, making sure that those signers, those signatures are authorized before providing you with the wire or a check mailed back to you. Internet access form. Oh, go back. The internet access form. The trust accounts, the website at BTC is very user-friendly. So each person will receive their own username and password. If you ever get locked out, like I said, it's easier just to remember one name, my name. You can just email me, and then I'll go through BTC and make sure that you have access online. You can have it's 24/7 access online. It doesn't shut down, so you can review your account, you can download statements, and you can download the monthly performance reports. Next slide. So here are our portfolio designs. So as Melissa indicated, CalPERS has 3 portfolios and they all have equities in them. So one of the benefits of our program is the fact that we provide 6 different portfolio options. So if you're coming into our trust and you're a little more conservative, you know, some of our clients who first started out could choose an all fixed income or all bonds, no equities whatsoever. And then many of our clients will upgrade to the conservative. The conservative portfolio has 16% equities, 84% bonds. And then the moderate is 33% and 67% bonds. Moderate growth is primarily the portfolio that most of our clients are in. And it's the one that's kind of a 50-50 split there. So if you're savvy with the investment market, then you kind of know when stocks don't do well, bonds do a little bit better. So most of our clients like to go into that 50-50 portfolio, or we do have several clients that are in the growth portfolio that has 61% equities and 39% bonds. We do not at this time have anyone in our aggressive growth which has 76% equities, but it is an option. It's all dependent on how you feel as a collective group that you'd like to do your investing. Next slide. Okay, so here's an example of the portfolio returns, and we do have the information going back to the inception date, which was in 2008. So this is information that we provide. If you look over to the left here, you'll see the names of each portfolio. Underneath those are what we call benchmarks. So it kind of tells you on the benchmark, it's for fixed income, it's total fixed income portfolio, which is Bloomberg US aggregate, or government bonds, US bonds. And then you have the conservative, the moderate growth, going down to excessive growth. So quarter to date was not a very good quarter, the last quarter of 2024, but whether the performance is good, bad, or indifferent, we will always provide transparent information to you. Year to date, I'll go across the line on our moderate portfolio. Year to date was 6.3%. As you can see, we always do a comparative to our benchmarks underneath, so we outperform the benchmark there. 1 year, 6.3. That negative column under the 3 years, I have to highlight this for you. As you all know, we had a horrible 2022. So that is inclusive of the horrible numbers we had in 2022. But if you move over to our 5-year and 10-year, those numbers are also inclusive of 2022, but they're on the rise because we had a really good 2023 and most of 2024. Next slide. Keep going. And then I'll hand this back over to Melissa. Next slide. Next slide. These are just disclaimers that we have to put when we show the Morgan Stanley numbers. So our fees here. Keenan, we have, since it's a multiple employer trust, we have one level, one tier. Some of our other clients on the OPEB side may have a 3-tier fee schedule. We have one tier at 10 basis points. Benefit trust is 20 basis points. The reason you don't see Morgan Stanley listed here is because, as I indicated when we first started, they're contracted with benefit trust only. So benefit trust pays the Morgan Stanley fees out of their 20 bips. Our fees are deducted at the end of every month automatically. So it's based on your end of month asset value. If you have $3 million, it's going to take out that 30 basis points based on that $3 million, and it's paid directly to each providing entity. And that's basically it on the fees. It's real crystal clear there.
All right. So another question that came up as a part of, offering the trust were questions about, what should I have my pension funded at? Like, what is a good target? Should we target, 90%, 95, 100? What is a good funding goal? One thing we hear a lot about from clients is targeting an 80% funded level. And really, you know, when we look at a pension funding level, it's a useful measure, but the health or soundness of the plan holistically really can't be reduced to a single measure or benchmark in a single point of time. You know, when considering the health of the pension plan, it's best to look at what strategy is being used to address all unfunded liabilities over an appropriate time frame that works for the plan sponsor. So kind of going back to that 80% funded, that we kind of think of more of as a little bit of a myth when we look at the history of where that comes from. You know, there's a publication in 2007 by the Government Accountability Office where they released a report portraying an 80% funded level as a de facto benchmark for healthy pension systems. But they attribute this criteria to really unsighted public sector experts and stakeholders. It really wasn't clear, but they keep going back and using that sort of reference in future literature. So really kind of perpetuating this without having any sort of backup for that metric. When we look at the Pension Protection Act of 2006, which is a federal law that governs the private sector pension plans, really limits are enforced when plans are under 80% funded. For single employer plans, you know, you cannot make benefit improvements, make lump sum payments, or use of advanced funding balances. Under the Pension Protection Act 2006, on multiple employer plans, if the balance is below 80%, then stricter funding rules become effective. So really, I wouldn't say it's that, you know, we talk about that being sort of a healthy spot, but really you want to be above and beyond that. And focus on what is a strategic method that you can utilize to achieve that 100% funded level over a reasonable period of time. And for every agency, that's going to be a different metric for them based upon where they're at and where they can go and what other limitations on a funding level are in play. Another consideration is intergenerational equity. You know, there is the thought that, you know, if current employees and employers are not paying their fair share of costs, that's potentially putting that on future generations who are going to have to pay more for benefits and potentially receive less in benefits as well. So, you know, we have listed here on the side, you know, all of our public agency participants from our clients and where their funded level is. But you know, it's really a case by case, and what one agency is doing shouldn't inform another agency. It's sort of apples to oranges here, but we want to provide that transparency and show you sort of where our clients are at currently.
And just before we end our presentation, I wanted to add that our Section 115 trusts, both OPEB and pension, are irrevocable trusts, meaning the funds that go into the trust can only be used for those specific reasons. So this is a pension trust you're going to establish. It can only be used for pension related expenses. And for the most part, on the pension side, let me back up a little bit. On the OPEB side, most of the actuary kind of calculates based on a 30-year amortization schedule. Well, it used to be 30 years. Now it's more like a muni bond rate at a 20-year schedule. But for our pension trust, most of the clients are going to probably dive into those funds between a 5 and 7 year period. So it's a shorter duration there. So it does provide you with very different options that you have here in order for you to, because you're going to have to send that money to CalPERS anyway. But you know, why not allow the funds to grow before you send it over to CalPERS?
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of our presentation. This is our contact information. We thank you very much for your time today. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask us?
Yes, thank you on behalf of our committee for your presentation. We do have members here with questions, and I think firsthand I saw was Commissioner Elkine, so I'll go first.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the presentation. I have a question about the fees, and I'm going to start with the most basic question you refer to as a basis point. I believe that's 1/100th of 1%. Is that correct?
Correct, 0.01%.
0.01%. Okay. And is that now you said that these were paid monthly. Is this the annual rate or is it the monthly rate?
That's the annual rate. So
Yeah.
the monthly rate would be a 1/12 of this
Okay.
amount. Mhm.
Great. And
Yes.
I thought I heard that with regard to fees paid to Morgan Stanley, those come out of what's paid to benefit trusts. So there are no additional fees associated with the mutual funds in which you invest. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other questions? Other commissioners?
David Cahill
David
has his
Cahill.
hand raised.
Commissioner Cahill, please.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I noticed that on your list of clients, I did not see any libraries per se. Do you handle any libraries at the moment?
We
We
don't
had
currently have
one
any-
library client and he was only in the trust fund for about 3 years. It was Palos Verdes Library District. They had a very small liability, pension liability. So
Mhm.
his investment was just shy of, it was just under $1 million. So he was in the program for 3 years and then their governing board decided to just take the funds and move over to CalPERS because their liability was very small.
Okay, so there's no present clients who are libraries.
That is correct.
We would be the first.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I had a few questions. Sorry, I thought I saw somebody's hand. In terms of the participants on the Board of Authority, do you find those are usually staff members like CFO and the directors, or do you see more elected officials or appointed officials as representing the plan?
It's typically staff members on our Board of Authority, and they're usually either the CBO or CFO or finance director, someone that could pretty much understand the reports and
Right.
what the actual the liabilities are as far as how the programs ran.
Yeah, that's what I assumed, but I thought I'd check. And where are you located?
Our corporate office here is in Torrance, California. We have
Torrance?
we have an office in Rancho Cordova as well. Several offices in California, but I'm in the corporate office here in Torrance, California, Southern California.
Okay. Thank you. And then Andy asked my question about the basis points, but that's the total amount of fees that are on this and as part of this process is 30 basis points on an annual basis.
That is correct.
Okay. And then how do the fees compare to CalPERS?
You want to answer that, Melissa?
I think it's only like 7 basis points higher. If I looked, they were around like mid-20 basis points.
Their fees are lower, but our performance has always outperformed CalPERS.
And that's the selling point is basically the different investment choices and the
Correct.
potential of higher returns.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, they have 3 portfolios on the OPEB side, but on the pension side, there's only 2, and they haven't been stellar when you look at the returns on them.
Okay. Thank you. And could whoever spoke about intergenerational equity go into a little more detail about that, what that means? What it mean for
Yeah.
us or participants?
Yeah, so essentially, if you're not paying all of the current costs of what your pensions dollars are needed, or you're not paying the full amount of what's owed for that period, and there's a liability that's unfunded as a result of underpayment. And again, your funded status is sort of a variable of a number of things, right? So when your discount rate is adjusted, all of a sudden you can have a larger or smaller unfunded liability if you're not paying the full amount during the of what part CalPERS is asking you to fund. That can create some unfunded liability. If you're paying off current amounts by amortization, it's your current staff and dollars are being used to fund past expenses, right? So the idea is by leaving dollars unfunded in your pension, who's going to take care of that, and how is that going to impact the pension, how much the agency has to pay for in the future, and you know, if it's not being done now, you know, eventually someone has to pay those costs, right? So it's more of a trickle down generationally, you know, if current costs aren't being paid.
So have you seen this become an issue in the plans, and in what kind of way, you know,
I
what's
mean,
the,
on a large scale, you know, PEPRA reform 2013, you know, changing what those formulas are, what compensation is pensionable, you know, sort of is a big example of that. But you know, smaller examples could be if a group, you know, isn't paying those costs, how are they going to come up with that? Or are, you know, these dollars are coming from benefits, are benefits, you know, in other areas not being paid or as competitive, you know, how does that from a budgetarily perspective create restrictions on future hires? So it's sort of multifaceted given sort of where dollars come from and where they're being budgeted, right? But it is sort of a looming concern that has come up more to date with groups.
hey, thank you. I think I have one more question. This is an irrevocable trust, so all the money that goes into it has to be used for pension, which I understand.
Correct.
However, it can be used for either current payments or you don't, if you want to pay, you can use it for any level of pension payments, right? I mean,
And there's a
as
lot
long
of
as it's been-
flexibility too. So you can always, you know, use dollars, like say you can always use dollars from the trust to reimburse past expenses that were paid to pension. And we don't have a required window. So some administrators, you know, you can only go back 2 years. We are really flexible. So we don't have those requirements.
Okay.
On reimbursement, timing, more or
Sure.
less.
So have you had all your clients stay with you basically, except the Palos Verdes Library people? I mean,
Yes.
you see long-term relationships.
We do. Most of our clients have been there from day one, and many of our clients have yet to even take a withdrawal. You know, even on the OPEB side, even though they're fully funded, they're still using funds from the general fund to pay out their pension or their OPEB costs. That's just a choice that you make individually.
Yeah. Let me go around the room and see if anyone else has any questions. Any other hands? No questions? Okay, well, I'm sure our CFO will be back in touch with you and we thank you very much for your time and your presentation. It was very detailed and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your
Thanks so
time
much.
as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So before we move on or move backwards to our first topics, any comments, questions, thoughts about the presentation you'd like to bring up?
Dave Cahill.
Yes, Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I have two comments. I'm a little uneasy at the fact that they don't presently handle any library funds. I just point this out. I mean, we'd be an experiment for them. Secondly, and this is a true quibble, but one that has been useful in the past, there were multiple typographical errors in the slide presentation, so nobody proofread it. And that's just a sign of carelessness. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Doyle.
I would respond about the low number of libraries. most of the libraries, I mean, Palos Verdes is, I believe, a special district also. And so the other libraries are part of a county or part of a city. And so the city and the county are doing a lot of the financial planning. So it's not, there aren't that many special districts. I mean, it wouldn't be unusual not to have a special district in the group.
There's only
Good point.
5 JPAs in the state of California. There are other special districts, but most of them are one library districts. So the largest JPAs are us, Sacramento, Santa Clara, and San Mateo. And I don't know, if they are considering, I have reached out to them to ask about their unfunded accrued liability funding rates. I haven't gotten, none of them have gotten back to me. They've all said they had to look into it. We had one library from Florida through the Urban Libraries Council who shared that they have 123% funded rate, but that is Florida. I haven't been able to get data from other libraries, so.
No wonder they answered, they had a
So
good
the other
answer.
would be using CalPERS. I mean, yeah.
Well, my impression was, they went really fast and it's really complicated. I mean, there's, all the levels to it. I don't know, it's just, I understood it, but it's, more complicated than going through CalPERS. And, in terms of investment choices, I'm sure their returns are, I gather, more impressive than CalPERS have been. And, so certainly something to consider. And I guess we'll bring this back after we talk to CalPERS. You've got CalPERS coming in May, did you say?
I have invited CalPERS. I still need to confirm that, but there is an invitation for that.
And then would we be talking to another third-party administrator, or is this like the only one we're gonna talk with?
At this time, this is the only third-party vendor that I have been able to identify. I'm sure there's others. What I would like to say to Commissioner Cahill's question or uneasiness about having no library clients is that, well, there's several reasons that were already discussed. I think more comparable would be other public, that certainly that they do cover public agencies, and that we look at public agencies that may be our same size in terms of workforce and unfunded liability. There would be no difference on how they manage for a public agency, in particular, specifically here in California. So I think that is most important. If this finance committee is interested in speaking to other private companies that do this work, is we're probably going to be the same, that there are very little to no libraries in their portfolio, but how well, how trustworthy are they? Do they have clients that are in similar size? And in terms of workforce and unfunded liability, what sizes are portfolios, et cetera. So I think those are critical questions to ask. The other is that CalPERS has a number of tools that we can ask them to present. In speaking to them, they shared with me a tool that shows all of their clients on a graph. And you could filter that list of clients to just look at JPAs. How do we compare to other JPAs in size? How do we compare to other libraries? They do have other libraries in there, very few. How do we compare to special districts in Sonoma County only? So there's this tool that we could see, so you could get further information about what environment we're going to be embarking on. So that's good. But I think in this conversation, the points that have been raised and that I have taken note are which have been raised here today, is, you know, the performance of the portfolios for under CalPERS compared to, you know, the private sector. What is the governance of you know, the portfolio, and how much risk the library is you know, comfortable with. And what I found here that was nice is there's some type of test that can, so you have some dialogue so that you have a good finger on the pulse of the governing board in terms of the risk that you're willing to take. So those are, so that then you could select a portfolio, a strategy that then will hopefully give you the results that you're looking for. So anyway, I think those are the different strategies and tools and structure that are going to be provided to us compared to CalPERS.
Thank you. I think our director wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, so, you know, when we do RFPs, one of the things that we do is a scoring matrix where we come up with criteria for evaluating a proposal. And if the finance committee decides, you know, that they want to evaluate 2 or 3 different companies that provide these services, that is what I would recommend, that you develop a tool to help you assess these different plans and these different agencies. And that will help you determine, you know, which agency or which company is best suited for us.
Lisa, did you have a comment or question?
I just have a question. Is the library, can the library choose 2 different trusts? Like, you know what I mean? Is it like all or nothing, or can the finance committee recommend that half of the funds go with Keenan and then half of the funds go with CalPERS? You know what I mean? I was just curious.
Probably could. It sounds really complicated though.
I don't know the exact answer to that question. I'll have to look into that.
Miranda, back to you for a sec. Do you like that? You seem to like that idea of being a representative, or one of you being a representative on the governing board, whatever they called it, the Board of Authorization. When under CalPERS, we don't really have any, we're just receivers of information, right? We're not participants in any way.
Correct.
You know, when on our OPEB trust, I mean, you just get a report in July or something, right? And
Correct.
that's
Quarterly, and then we do get an actuary report from them.
Andy's guys.
oh, yes, okay. Commissioner O'Kine.
Seems to me there's a couple of relevant decisions and some that are not so relevant. The fact that we're a library, I feel, is completely irrelevant. We're talking about managing funds for a pension fund. The entity whose employees are included in the pension fund shouldn't make any difference what they're doing. Seems to me that we're looking at 3 different options, assuming that we believe we should be moving toward 100% funding, which I feel like we believe. One is we can make additional payments to CalPERS. We can continue to do that. The other is that we can go with a Section 115 trust. We know that CalPERS operates a Section 115 trust because they're doing that for OPEB. Or we can consider an outside firm like this one. In terms of the key questions, what additional flexibility or benefits are provided by going with a Section 115 trust as opposed to just making additional payments to CalPERS? We've seen some information on this. I think we need to just have it in front of us. And then if we're looking at which of the 3 choices to go with, it feels like, what are the costs in terms of fees, and what are the performance results over time? So those seem like very reasonable criteria, and I agree with you. We would want to, lay those out and compare. So thanks.
Time to move on. And we don't have a meeting in April, so in May, the next time we meet here, we will be talking to CalPERS, so hopefully if they accept our invitation.
Yes, and I think we could start summarizing the comparison now that we've had this presentation from an outside group. And we can refine that, to ensure that we cover the points that you're considering, and we can use that then to then make a decision on what route to take.
Yeah.
But I think also that question also, I'll make sure that we need to add is also a discussion about the funding status, the goal, and how, and in a what amount of time.
Yeah.
So that then we could determine what the annual payments would be.
My last comment is, do you have any comment to make about the intergenerational equity issue and how that applies to us or doesn't apply to us, or?
The intergenerational question does apply to every organization, especially if there is unfunded liability. As we know, as time progresses, it becomes more expensive to fully fund those liabilities. They are there. We are obligated as an employer to cover those. And many organizations do not address these very effectively.
So
It's
there-
just expensive.
Yeah, so and the long-term impacts could be everything from, depending upon our revenue situation in the future, that, currently, we have in our MOU what, employees are responsible for, what we're responsible for. Other libraries have, when they've renegotiated their contracts, the employees have had to pick up additional costs because of that. So that is one of the risks that when you're not fully funded, that employees are going to be paying for, as they said, past.
This is the argument for 100% goal.
It's one of the arguments.
One
for
of the arguments.
100%. I don't know if you want to go there now, but is there anybody here who doesn't think we should be funded at 100%?
We're not gonna be funded 100% tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow, but
Right.
that we need a reasonable plan to get to 100% or as close as possible.
You had mentioned before, a reasonable plan to get there, and then if we fall below whatever our goal is, a plan to catch up.
Yeah, and we can decide what a reasonable, we haven't defined that, but probably, 1 or 2 years, not reasonable, couldn't possibly do it. 20 years, too far, not aggressive enough. We're looking somewhere in between, but to me, the agreement that we're going to pursue 100% and that we have a timeline to do it is the more important decision. Whether we choose to do the funding directly to CalPERS or through a Section 115 trust is important, but not as important that we do something. So, and that's, I know I've conveyed that to Myrna, that's just my opinion, but I don't think we should get lost in the weeds of, which plan might be slightly better. The main thing is that we've committed to moving forward and closing that gap.
Right. Good summary, good points, and I think this was a very helpful discussion today, and all that we're moving in the right direction for policy. Do you want to go ahead and do this NorthNet thing?
Yes, if that is your
That's fine.
pleasure. Okay.
Yeah.
So in your packet, I included some information about the North Bay Cooperative Library Systems Unfunded Accrued Liability. And just a general explanation, I know it's hard to wrap your head around Sonoma County Library belongs to NorthNet Library System. This is a cooperative that is formed through the state library. Through this cooperative, we do resource sharing. We get all kinds of discounts on services and programs. We also have, through the California Library Services Act, we can qualify for grants through the state library. That is one of the benefits of our membership in NorthNet. NorthNet is actually a JPA that was formed of 3 legacy systems, including the North Bay Cooperative Library System. That system had employees, and there are currently 19 retirees, and we are required to pay that unfunded accrued liability. I don't know of those 19 employees, if any of them were ours. This is just a requirement of being in the cooperative. The way the funding works is that the payments for the UAL are based upon 50% is based upon your population, 50% is based upon your total revenues. Because of all the North Bay libraries, we have the biggest population and we have the largest budget. We pay more than anyone else. And this is something that we have been doing for years and years and years. Our annual payment, so what we typically do is we prepay, like the library does. We prepay, and last year our prepayment was $41,000. At the January meeting, all the library directors who participate in NBCLS talked about paying it down, not paying it off. Paying it off is $3 million. And we all thought that was way too much money. And our share of that would have been about $890,000. But our share of this pay down is $281,729. This was based on the February 28th quote. So this number may change. When we go back to CalPERS in June for the actual amount, it will really be based upon what happens between February 28th and when they ask. And you've seen the market volatility and that we've experienced in the last week. So I don't know how much the actual amount will be. I do want to say that all of the agencies have to agree to the pay down. Otherwise, we go back to the prepayment plan. So if we decide, yes, we're going to pay this, but one of the other participating libraries says, no, I can't afford it, then we just go back to our prepayment plan. So I realize, when you look at the chart on page 27, you can see how much we are responsible for in comparison to the other libraries, but it's just because of that funding formula. Andy.
Comment and question. Comment, I've been on the commission for 6.5 years. I have never heard anything about any aspect of this whatsoever. That's surprising and upsetting to me. The question, I assume that despite my surprise and upsetness, there's basically nothing we can do other than pay this liability that was incurred years back before any of us were involved.
That is correct. So NorthNet actually hired an attorney to see, they hired an attorney to evaluate who was liable. Was there some other participating library who might also be liable? And the attorney said, nope, you are all liable. You must pay. So as I said, of the 19 employees, the retirees who are receiving the pension, I don't even know if any of them were ours. So it's just, it's the commons, right? We participate in a cooperative library system, and this is the price for doing that.
Another question, and are we involved in anything else that has employees and for which we will become liable? Or I have no problem being part of a cooperative system. I just assumed that did not involve employees separate from our own folks.
No, NorthNet actually doesn't have any employees.
Right.
They do have people who work for them, but they are contracted. to work for them. So that was the change that was made when they were formed as a JPA.
Okay, all right. So we just have to grit our teeth and suck it up. Okay, thank you.
It's truly a legacy thing. It didn't seem like a big deal back when they signed the contract and I would say it's to Andy that under Director Ann Hammond, she brought it up to us, and I don't remember if it was the full commission or the finance thing, because I remember having the same sort of reaction, you know, like, why are we responsible? I didn't realize the extent. I don't think we had the full big number on it. My question is why this amount, this particular amount? I mean, if it doesn't pay down, you know, the big number, is it like a, you know, a fourth of the big number, or where did it come from? 854,000.
So it's based upon, there was an audit that was in our packet that kind of explains how this number came to be. This is a pay down, you know, it's based on a point in time. So at, you know, like I said, on February 28th, 2025, this is what the UAL was, the $854,612. The whole, as I said, if we want to pay it off, the audit shows how much that would be. It's a little over $3 million. And that would pay it off and that would end all, you know, all payments going forward. But none of the agencies really have the money to completely pay it off. And so this would pay it down, which would mean, you know, next year we might still have to make a payment, but it wouldn't be, you know, it would be nominal. It wouldn't be 41,000. I don't know if it would be a couple of thousand. It's really, like I said, because it's based upon the market, it's hard to say.
Well, I just don't understand the logic between the amount, if it's three million to pay it all off today. And we're instead maybe going to pay off 854,000. I mean, what is that? Like you say, maybe.
Well, so you know, the payoff amount is based upon 19 employees receiving these benefits over a certain number of years. Whereas this is based upon, you know, this is a pay down, so it's a different, you know, I could bring the actuarial report that they provided next time. So if you.
Is it gonna, it doesn't change in the oncoming years, how much we have to pay, but just we don't have to pay as many years? Or does it mean we pay less for all the years that are left?
It means we pay less for all the years that are left.
Okay.
We'll still have to pay, but it, you know, like I said, we won't know until.
Right. And we won't know if everybody else is gonna do this, so it's.
Well, I'll tell you, if, you know, we'll know so we have our next meeting, I want to say in May or June, and that's where we will find out what the other member libraries have agreed upon.
So you can't put this in our budget this year, or you're going to, or?
We were planning on putting it in the budget this year.
Yeah.
It would be a use of fund balance. It's a one-time payment, use of fund balance and paid, since it's a legacy system, that property tax would pay 100% of this, whatever amount would be.
Thank you, Commissioner Doyle.
Just as kind of historical, since some people are not familiar with it, a lot of this goes back to Prop 13. And so when lots of libraries were completely lost tons of funding, especially the county libraries, especially the smaller rural libraries. Libraries in California got together and the state library helped to give some advice. And so cooperatives were created. And then as money got, you know, then money would get tight at a different time. And so the smaller cooperatives would group into larger cooperatives. And so NorthNet is one of the cooperatives, and there's one in the Bay Area, the lower Bay Area. And then there's, but they also include about 40 library systems. And then Southern California has a big one. And they're all wrestling with some of these issues. You know, it's just like us deciding that we had to take on the OPEB problem that we had not necessarily created, but that we were living with. And so this is something that, because libraries are chronically underfunded in California and have been since Prop 13, this is something that just those of us who do have some funding, we kind of have a responsibility to help, to help the other libraries. And I'm sure you all, not to change the subject radically, but Friday, one of the executive orders that came out from the president was that the Institute of Museum and Library Services was supposed to be, he wants that to go away. And so that the funding has always been very strange, from the federal level to the state level to the national, to the local level. So this is something that, if you, and there are some libraries out there that aren't open very long hours. And it's the stronger libraries in the systems that make it possible for them to function. And so it makes it possible for them to have, the co-ops help people buy things as a co-op that an individual library wouldn't be able to buy. And so if there's some personnel issues, that was sort of, and it's over years, truly over years. So it's sometimes hard to swallow, but I think that a lot of the library systems and a lot of the library care over the years has been put together with toothpicks and paper clips. And libraries don't tell civilians. They just think that we're going to make the libraries work. That's what we do. We make the libraries work. We don't complain to the public about it. And I think we should have complained to the public for years. But so that's partly deep background.
Well, thank you for that. That's good
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
And again, makes us all very, very grateful for the funding of the Sonoma County Library
Yeah.
and the voters in November. And
Yeah, I will say that, NorthNet is a pretty large cooperative, like Humboldt County, which is way far up in the north, is part of NorthNet, and Butte County. And a lot of those counties have no ebook programs.
Right.
They get it entirely through NorthNet. They could not afford to pay the ebook, vendors what we pay them. So, a majority of their electronic resources they get through NorthNet.
So.
And NorthNet is funded how?
So, it's funded through, we're members, so we pay them.
It's a membership.
It's a membership. We
Okay.
pay them annually. And that's also included in my executive services budget.
I would just like to say that this is a prime example of intergenerational equity.
Thank you.
At that time, the libraries in that cooperative felt that they could not, maybe they weren't aware. These were times where the truth wasn't really transparent because there were no reporting requirements, et cetera, et cetera. Libraries were trying to make ends meet, and they were trying to just make the day-to-day, keep the lights on and the doors open, and felt like this is something that we could just push it, kick the can down the road. And here we are. When I was working with the city of Oakland, they also dealt with a very small pension fund that had 12, not even no longer members, but their spouses. And so there was millions of dollars of liability there, and that liability wasn't going to go away until there were no longer survivors. So that is the intergenerational equity that we're fully working with right now.
Yeah.
Good discussion. Thank you all for the comments and background. That's really helpful to know that. Let's jump quickly back to where we're going to start and talk about budget, accounting, and finance services workflow. If you have any comments about that, Mirna?
Yes. I would just like to note that at the time that the workflow was developed, things have changed since then. And currently, First, a few, currently, the 5-year forecast has not been started. I believe that the work where the mid-year adjustments in making reductions to our budget in the current year really was unanticipated and took a lot of time and resources that has pushed some items lower on the priority list. And currently, we're working on the budget for next year, which has been a delicate matter to balance. So with that, I'd like to notify this committee that the 5-year forecast, I'm not sure when it could happen. And given that we are having discussions on the pension and the unfunded liability, you did see a valuation, which I do believe is valuable, that the CalPERS has put together, that the pension valuation that is on here is discretionary. It's not a requirement, it's not obligated. And would like to know, even though the library has every 2 years had a independent pension liability actuary report done, if the library would like, given the considerations, postpone it for some time, maybe for the fall, or we'll see how our budget develops. So that's the March items. In February, we also had procedures update that we did not present, that I would like to present in May. And you'll get some idea of it at the budget workshop, as all divisions will list accomplishments. But that would be Catherine that would give a more in-depth presentation in May for the procedures that we've been working on.
So.
Yes, thank you. We're in the throes of the budget, ensuring that we capture all the costs that are necessary. And in addition, balancing those figures. Much has been happening, as you know, at the federal level and locally in terms of economic climate, external factors that do have an impact today on the budget. So we've been working on that. I asked Catherine as backup to update the report for today as of February 28th, 2025.
So February is the 8th month out of the year, or 67% of the fiscal year. I do. Can you not hear me? I couldn't hear you. Is that better? Okay, thank you. Sorry, so let me just step back. February is the 8th month out of the fiscal year, or 67%. To jump to the property tax, revenue is projected to meet the year-end target. As of February, it's 6 months of the sales tax has been collected. And February was
the largest we've seen so far this year, which is really good news. We are still being cautious, but it still was good news. And then, so would you, I'm sorry, go back up. Yes, please. Right there. Thank you. So the total revenues through the end of February are 25 million, which is 55.6% of the budgeted revenue. Property tax is to date the total of 15.8 million, which is 56.9% of the budget. The next scheduled payment is for April. Go ahead to sales tax. The sales tax receipts to date are 7 million, which is approximately 50.6% of the budget. The other revenue combined is 1 million, which is 90.8% of the budget. Expenditures.
Oh,
sorry.
before you go on,
Oh,
I just
yeah.
wanted, I did want to add that I was able to receive an early report for the March sales tax. It's one of the areas that I had reported earlier was that sales tax was not up to par with the number of months that have come across and what percentage we have received given our total budget target. It's been 2 months now. The month of, as you see in February, which represented 6 months, we were at 50% of our revenue, which was right on target. And with the March, we will be on target to meet our full target. That's still a caveat that the receipts from March are really January's receipts. So given everything that has been happening locally and in particular nationwide, there's that caveat that there's just still so much uncertainty. But I feel somewhat optimistic that we will meet our full target this year. Yeah, so I just want to say that it was important that we made those reductions at mid-year. And this reflects our collective work to have a balanced budget.
That's great. Thank you. Ed?
I hope we're right. I have a little different view. I was also encouraged to see that for the first time, we're above a statistical straight line, being at 50.6 rather than 50%. But I went back and looked at the prior year's actuals. And at this point last year, we had collected what turned out to be 51.56% of the total that we collected during the year. So it was higher than 50.6. And if I apply that percentage to where we are, it projects out at 15,460,000. So we're about 300,000 short. Now that assumes that this year is like last year, but.
So may I ask a question?
Sure.
You looked at what was the actual collected?
Well, yeah, if you go to.
Or are you speaking?
No, I'm going to the actual collected, Lisa, could you go to the summary report on page 9, please? Yeah, there we go. So you can see, if you look at sales tax, and this is all the way over in the right, the 2 columns that are shaded in orange. Through February of last year, sales tax was 8,041,124. When I compared that to what we actually collected over the year, which was the next column, the actuals 15,594,408, it represented 51.56% of that total. So if we assume that what we've collected so far this year represents 51.56% of what we're gonna collect, it projects out at 15,460,000. So obviously, many questions, many things could happen between now and then, but after I did that, I was a little less optimistic, that's all.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, but
I hope you're right and I'm wrong.
well, it's anyone's guess, there's been so much uncertainty and volatility that we'll see, we'll
Right.
see. And I had still projected a couple of months ago that we may be short about 100,000. It could be 300,000. Things could change normally. The month of May and June have a spike. So, those are also things that we still need to see. Yeah, but I appreciate your observation.
All right.
Not to mention tariffs on wine sales and all that. There's so much going on. Anyway, Catherine, or did you want to pick back up where you were, or?
I'm happy to, unless there's further questions.
Are we wrapped up with this one? I thought I had one question.
If I could just add something.
Sure.
And thank you for letting me to interrupt your report, but I continue to be impressed with the fiscal discipline that Myrna and her team and all of the division managers have applied. I mean, our expenses to me, are all in line with where they need to be, and just appreciate the attention that you're continuing to pay to that. So thank you.
Good point. Well said. Thank you. Just a quick question for a definition on our statement of special fund activities for property tax. Way at the bottom, the ending fund balance restricted for HRA, and I'm thinking I should know what that is, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Health retirement account.
Health retirement account. Okay. Thank you very much. So any final questions on our financial reports collectively? All right. Thank you, David. No?
Nope.
Alrighty. So I think we just have one more item, and that's discussing the dates or possible cancellation of June and or July Finance Committee meetings. And I'll turn this over to whoever would like to talk about this. Probably Myrna. Lisa has laid out some dates in here in the past that we have held meetings, and it's kind of back and forth about whether we have July or June meetings. And I think it really kind of depends on how you see the work flowing and what we need to know.
In the past, this committee has have an early check-in to see if the committee still wanted to meet. So there is a possibility that or a request that if the committee would like to meet, that the date would be moved from the 3rd to the 4th week of June.
So the 23rd. The 23rd.
Yes.
And that fits the schedule and reports and everything better. Does anybody have any objections to that, or will tell us where it's, when you're closing out the year is always kind of when we run into these kinds of issues.
Yeah, so
I think that's why we didn't meet in July, right? Because you needed that.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with, yeah.
and for the month of June, we would be reporting the end of May, and we could still meet given some scheduling, though, that we were requesting to move the meeting to the fourth week of June.
I don't have any problem with that. And would we be talking about moving June to the 23rd and then not meeting in July? So you
Yeah.
can close out the year.
I'd be fine with both
Boy,
of
we
those.
get a vacation.
Yeah, that looks good to me.
That's good, David. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? Thumbs up.
Aye.
Okay,
Yay.
all right. Thank you very much. And Lisa, how do you keep track of those dates and remind everybody or?
Well, I had the draft schedule. It was kind of for internal use. I had scheduled in Outlook for June 16, I believe, so I would just switch that to June 23rd. There's no place that we post these meeting schedules, so it's typically the third Monday of the month, but flexible if the committee agrees to change the day and time.
Okay. Okay, so that's done. Check, check. And our very next meeting will be here in this room on Monday, May 19th. And in between, we will have our fascinating and interesting budget workshop on April the 16th. Any other issues? Yes, Commissioner Dodd.
The agenda items for future committee meetings.
Oh, my fault. Okay,
No, not your fault.
yes, go ahead.
Erica, do we want to talk about the subject that Randall raised at the?
I was gonna bring that up at the commission meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then never mind.
Okay, are there any items that you'd like to discuss? We have our workflow, but if you have other items, speak now or wait until May. Okay, cheers. Thank you all. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
All right,
Feeling
feel
better,
better.
Dave.
Yeah,
Right.
take care, David. Bye-bye.
This makes me feel better.